Good morning, and thank you for joining today's WebEx on locally created pathways. I'm Ben Carter, and I'm the Director of Workforce Innovation from the Indiana Department of Education, and I have Alicia joining me today, the Senior Director of Policy and Legislation from the State Board of Education.
Good morning.
And so we're really excited to kind of launch the locally created pathway application. It officially launched on March 1st, but we wanted to provide a WebEx to help folks facilitate that application process. So today, just a brief introduction. We'll give you an overview of the process. We'll dive in a little bit into the criteria, talk about the timeline and review process, and then we'll finish up with any questions that you all might have. Kind of want to dive into graduation pathways just to make sure we know what we're focusing on. So there's three different core areas. We have obviously students earning their credits in one of the four diploma designations. That's Core 40, Academic Honors, Technical Honors, or General. Then we have the Learn and Demonstrate Employability Skills. So students are required to participate in a project, service, or work-based experience that helps them progress through the Department of Workforce Development's employability skill benchmarks. And then in addition to having that experience, the schools verify that experience through a student work product. And then the third component of graduation pathways are the post-secondary ready competencies. And there are 9 different competencies. You have the Honors Diploma, ACT, SAT, ASVAB. You have your industry recognized certifications, which is a list published by the Department of Workforce Development. You have your federally registered apprenticeships. You have your CTE concentrator. There's the AP, IB, dual credit, Cambridge International, CLIP. And then the part that we're going to focus on today in this presentation is the locally created pathway. So the locally created pathway is a separate application process. The application is submitted, and then a team of folks review it and provide feedback. Successful completion, if it's approved, we have 2 that are currently approved. Successful completion takes the place of a student having to meet one of the other 8 post-secondary ready competencies. So if they complete an approved locally created pathway, they've satisfied that third component, the post-secondary ready competency. And hopefully embedded within the locally created pathway is an opportunity for them to have an employability skills experience. So hopefully by creating a locally created pathway, you are able to knock out 2 of those 3 required components. And in terms of the locally created pathway and the application itself, there are 3 separate areas that we're looking at. So collaboration, competency, and continuous improvement. And these 3 areas are what make up the application itself.
So to dive a little bit deeper into the criteria, the first one we have is collaboration. So as part of the locally created pathway, there has to be a collaborator that helps develop this pathway. One of the required partners is either an industry or business partner, a higher ed partner, or some kind of community organization. Again, the pathway, in order just to be considered, has to have one of those 3 partners as part of the development. In addition, we will look to see what is the ongoing role the partner will have in this pathway, what role they will play, how they will continue to support it, and continue to work with the school and work with the students. The final thing we look for with the collaboration is alignment to either the local labor market, regional labor market, or the state labor market. One thing that is very beneficial in the application process is providing data around how this profession or how this locally created pathway is aligned to these local labor markets. High wage, high demand data specifically for professions post-secondary is encouraged. There are a number of state websites that you can use, such as Burning Glass, as well as other DWD websites. But providing that data, that hard data, as part of your application process is highly encouraged. The next piece is the competency piece. We will ask specifically what it is a student will be able to know and do. In the new application, we ask specifically about the academic knowledge and skills the student gains, technical knowledge and skills, and to Ben's point, the employability knowledge and skills. So please be specific when explaining what it is students will gain through the locally created pathway. Additionally, we'll ask what are the specifics of the program, what courses that may be considered as part of it, assessments, skills, experiences, what is the currency that the student is getting by completing this pathway. As many of you know, Grad Pathways is focused on a diploma plus model. So what is the quote unquote plus that the student will be getting? The final piece that we ask for in the competency is what early college or career experiences that student will have. That goes to Ben's piece around the employability skills. How is that being included? And what experiences will the student get that, again, will translate to their post-secondary endeavors? The last piece is the continuous improvement. This is more about how do you measure success on this pathway and what are the outcomes that you will be measuring, as well as how will you continuously improve this based on those outcomes and based on data. So the first piece that we're going to ask is what are the intended outcomes? And we give some examples there that could be considered part of this. We will also ask, how will you measure those outcomes? What data will you be using? Will it be hard labor market data? Will it be more of a survey piece? What are you doing to track the success of this? And then again, how are you improving this process based on that data? So a few things to consider regarding the locally created pathways. When we launched the application last year, one thing that we found was many of our applicants, I would say the majority of our applicants, applied with applications that already met one of the existing post-secondary ready competencies. In the new application, you will be taken through a logic model that will ask you to evaluate the locally created pathway that you have in relation to the post-secondary ready competencies that are already on the books. So things like, does this pathway include 3 or more dual credit or AP or IB courses? A lot of the applications we received last year, the students in those pathways would have exceeded that requirement, therefore meeting it. So that is one key thing to consider. Does the pathway include the current suite of CTE pathways and programs of study? As many of you know, in November and December, the State Board with the department revamped career tech education and what counts as a concentrator and what courses are considered. Please review that guidance in those courses in order to ensure that your locally created pathway is not, again, already meeting a CTE concentrator. The last piece is, when should you not apply? Obviously, this is a rigorous process. It's a lot of work. It's time intensive. So in order to ensure that you're not wasting your time or spinning your wheels, there are certain instances that we would suggest going with the post-secondary ready competencies. Again, if your program meets one of the existing bullets, one or more of them, you are good to go and you don't need to apply for an LCP. One piece that I would encourage is that the state right now is currently reviewing the state-approved industry certifications through DWD. These are the ones that are used for accountability. The state is currently reviewing them and will update that list. So there may be some newer certifications that will be included. Additionally, the federal government is looking at industry-recognized apprenticeships. So that will also be a change coming down the pike. So if your LCP may include a certification of sorts from an industry, or if it could include an apprenticeship program through an industry, that could be taken care of in the near future without you having to go through an LCP program. The other difference is, are you combining different CTE courses to create a new program of study, or are you creating new CTE courses? That is a different pathway that goes through the career tech ed people that will then come to the board. So in order for that to be considered a concentrator. So that would be a different application process, and that could fulfill the bullets again without going through this application process.
Yeah, so just to clarify, there was a question on that. That is going to be a separate application process, and so you'll hear more from our CTE division in the coming weeks about that. In addition, they've posted a frequently asked question document regarding the career and technical education concentrator. And one of the questions is there a possibility that prerequisites for CTE concentrator courses or the course order or something of that nature will be changed? And they're still accepting suggestions up through June 30th. So if you want more information on that, check out our website and contact Tony Harrell if you have some suggestions or questions about that process.
So now to review the timeline in the review process. So the LCP application is now open. It opened last Friday, March 1st, and it will remain open through April 30th. Once that time has closed, to Ben's earlier point, we will have a review team review the applications, see if they meet existing bullets, see if they could qualify as an LCP, and then respond to applicants with feedback, questions, additional data that we may need, and get some additional information before giving our recommendation to the State Board of Education. So our initial recommendations will come back to applicants around June 7th. We will then have about a month to respond to feedback, get additional information as needed before the final recommendations are sent to the board, at which the July 10th board meeting, the board will either approve, table, or reject any applications that come to them.
So this webinar will be recorded, and so we're recording it. We'll polish it up and post it along with any resources. It will be posted at the website there you see on the screen, and you can get to that either by going directly to that URL, or you can go through our graduation pathways page. Along the right-hand side, you'll see a link for locally created pathway. On this page as well is where you're going to see a link to the current application process, and so it's an electronic application now. You'll need to fill that out. And then there's some instructions on there if you have additional documentation for your locally created pathway application that you can send that through. And any questions you have regarding this process or any additional documentation that you'd like to send through, you can email DOE gradpathways@doe.in.gov. And if you have questions about the process, happy to answer those. But again, all the information is going to be contained at the website above. And so now what we're going to do